Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum to everyone within the whole of the globe. And today is it 2nd of the August and year 2022. Last night I was in my judicial room and I was basically observing the concepts of the ultimate aggressive production of the narcotics. Yes, I was, and after that, I was observing the civil issues, and with the quantum of that depiction of the facts, I was into the position of the civil cum criminal misappropriation of the cross minus calculations of the transitional barriers within the central provisional order sub-divisional areas of the operative had charge of the Lahore city as well. While the frame line of the Article 184 of the Constitution, I was just observing those issues by myself, all night rotating into my judicial room as to just confronting with myself as to dissolve the observation of the surrounded abundant individual as well, that the concept of the same in the defection of the clauses of the same is the object line of the adjacent rules in the question of the subordinate certified minus obligations in the inclined parameters of the constitutional fixed parameters. When I just observed the fundraising cases in the Pakistan, I was obliged to observe the confronted barrels. Thereby, when I just observed the refined areas of the observations of the non-governmental funding, the non-governmental funding via the Foreign Regulation Act 1947, Section 15, 16, and 17 applied there, and it rules that the properties and the areas should be defeated in the favor of the State Bank of the Pakistan. Yes. But despite of all these transitional areas, what we just observe in the confronted lines in the reformative facts, these lines should be acknowledged. Due to the multiplication of the population in the Pakistan, the concept of the aggressive ratio of the minus rotation of the same is a question. The rules of the certain and uncertain issues under the civil obedience or civil disobedience, under the negligence of the civil misappropriated transitional parameters. Thereof, the whole night I was just observing the battle lines of the civil misappropriated transitional areas as well. The Lahore divisions, and especially the sub-divisional Lahores of the same, prima facie posing in the public sector in the ultimate negation of the coast derivation of the same. I'm just in the position and I'm just observing the concept of the reproductive erroneous errors. That is the secondary phrase, but that is the personal matter of the Republicans. My matter is the global matter. That is the economical issues in the Pakistan, wide the Article 100, the power of the Attorney General of the Pakistan, wide exercising the powers by myself after observing of the whole of the provisional areas of the Pakistan. I just become so arrogant according to the law, under the observation of the arrogance behavior and ignorant behavior of the same Republicans in their public life. So when I just observe the transportation disordered manipulated vehicles, I said under the civil laws that the framing lines of the articles 100 into the section 516 of the Code of the Criminal Procedure and 516A of the vehicles in the police stations within the sub-divisional areas of the Lahore city appears to be in the yardsticks of the whole of the Lahore because of the culture of the theft in Pakistan. The theft culture in the Pakistan is rising, and the minority under the 16 years becomes the operative criminals because of the hunger strikes observation of their non-compilatory modes of assessments of their observations, circulatory relatives, So when I just portray to be in the position of the observation of myself into the question of the reflexive hours of my neurology of legal dictation by myself, then I just observe under the judicial insights by the Article 100 of the Bar of the Attorney General of the Pakistan by myself that the constitutional mandate is in the presence, but the Republicans are trying to mold every sector into the virtual dictation of the non-reality. Today, I observed that the individuals become the virtual non-realistic property, and then the proprietary issues of the property in the transportation of the civil defection clauses through the code of the civil procedure within the sectors of the every code within the central divisional areas and sub-divisional areas of the Pakistan as a matter of judicial interest, as the matter of judicial insight of mine. Thereby, when I just observe the suo motu notices of the advanced interferences of the Republicans, those drawn depictions under the drawn dictations of their uh, ancestrals under the fiscal civil disobedient judgments as well, under the narrative facts of the factual disobedience of factors under the rules of the narrative disordered figures and the amounts in the calculations in the federal statute as well. When I just cross-study the federal statute by itself, then I observe that the all federal statutes in the Pakistan primarily portray to be Indian. And through this electronic mediums of the writ petition in the whole of the globe, I just want to observe the confronted area at the central limited observation of the Pakistani. And I'm a Pakistani, that's the way I just consider the things to get be in the positions to drive. So when I myself observe all these issues, then the persons and the individuals were busy while just observing the confinement of the localization into the specialization and the specialization into the localization, then the multipolar coast defection clauses. Thereby, the concept of the known observation of the personal interest in the prime and social lines of the social interest of the government sector is an object line in the civil defection clauses. I just observed that objected issue as well by myself under my legal slogan last night into my judicial room by myself. Whole late night I was into my room. The reason behind this rationale is to observe the confined areas of the confinement of the local observations of the Republicans into their ground virtual existence as well. The concept of the ground virtual existence is a new concept in the Pakistan that everything becomes virtual in existence, but the post-traumatic disordered individuals are trying to have the position of the same in the adverse lines of the concept of doubts. These are the advanced sort of the elements which I'm just portraying via the NAB ordinance 1999, and the definitions of the same are very broaded and thereby the Benami Transaction Act 2017. And after that, when I just observe the whole of these concepts of the legal observations, thereby I just come forward with a new thought into my civil obedient laws into the reformed areas, that the localization factor after observing the specialization ingredients into their raw dictations becomes the object lines through the same in the coded area as well. These concept of the public is the concept of disaster in the refined matters. Thereafter, when I just observe the fiscal obligations of the Republicans, I just come up with the next thought that the Republicans are not trying to achieve the achievable productivities. They are trying to achieve the retroactive fiscal negated transactions. The Republicans are in the positions to observe the retroactive fiscal negated policies as well. And the concurrent applied, the politicians are trying to observe the both in the prerogatives of the same object of services as well. The Foreign Service Agreement. Today, I'm going to raise a landmark judicial question under the Immigration Ordinance 1979, that the individual said that the Immigration Ordinance 1979, void section 2I, section 2, clause I, the Foreign Service Agreement. If any person who is not in the Pakistan and in the outside the Pakistan as the outstanding liability of the Pakistan and is and are were busy to just have the income under the outstanding liabilities of that country, and that the same person just want to hold the company into the front zones of the digitalization in the Pakistan, thereby the properties of the same shall be considered to defeated in the State Bank of the Pakistan automatically and automatically. But the said person, after having the fictitious cases into the same state bank, the same person just want to have the rotation of the other sort of the non-transitional areas of the incomes and expenses, and then the same subject line just be observed that he or she was not aware of the fact that the section 2 I was there. When you are rendering services out of the Pakistan without having the penetration of the local ingredients in the Pakistan, thereby the concept of the remaining areas of the land revenue should have been considered by yourself into the foreign services employment as well. These were the baseline issues while framing of the Article 184, a video link through this judicial advance notice by this advanced advocate Gulraiz under the International Copyright Ordinance that if any Pakistani outside the Pakistan is found under the Foreign Service Agreement, whatsoever the status of the same under the same subject line of services is be confined to be figured out, then the same person be charged under the section 17 of the same head penalty clauses, section 17, that the same person shall be confined there or, or deputed. And when I just cross study the deputed individuals in the Pakistan, the deputation laws in the Pakistan, when you just observe the foreign deputed individuals in the Pakistan, this is a favorite game of the other individuals. And Pakistani state is so crime free these days. Meanwhile, crime free means that not to have the criminals into the possessions of the jails and the other reciprocate area of the science. The confinement and the solitary confinement in the Pakistan is an object line through the years 2017 to toward 2022. And thereof, when I just put forward myself into the shells of the police rules 1934 chapter 5, thereby I just come up with the section 25, uh, rule 25.22 of the rule of the police line, the dying declaration. So, observing the dying declarations of the deceased individuals, the property should be observed under the civil laws as per my observations through this applied criminal judgment in the whole of the Lahore High Court. Thereafter, the Supreme Court would be repealed into the same, because the Supreme Court have the review petitions and the prime petition, which is being considered by myself, that the concepts of the Article 184, the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, always come forward in the play line of the same if the question is in the doubt after the digital non-compilation of the issues. But before that, the concept of the issues of the civil disobedience and the disobedient individuals always come forward in the public line as well. The concept of the ultimate disasters public limited companies in the Pakistan is a concept which is not being observed by the localization factors. The localization factors are trying to beat the odds that there is a price hike and the COVID-19. When you multiply the price hike with the COVID-19, the concept of the you can say that molar or polar deceased individuals or diseased individuals would be in your area of working. When whole of these rotations come forward, thereby which sector is the concept? The concept of the same, that the females and the males misappropriated assets of the families under subordination of the civil disobedient factors, and after the constructive blackmailing culture to the each other, they be under the exceptions to the reality of the trial to the truth under the acceptance of the same is a question which is not being addressed under the redressal of the doubts to the same object lines. I said that I'm a king. The concept of this lordship of the Lahore High Court, via the video link of this same subject lines, that when the individualism is raising and the person capacity is declining, the concept of the in-person observation of the obstructed positions of the physique is a concept which is not being observed by either of us these days. The concept of the malified intention of the unintentional growth rate of the individuals and having the repatriation of the drugs through the females, and This is the offense that I observed the whole of the cases, that the heroin cases and the drugs cases, that during the years 2019 towards 2020 in the Lahore High Court by my subordinate seniors as well, that they were charged to have the rescue of the individuals. Those individuals were involved in the criminal principal activities that such criminals are having in the uh, you can say that smuggling under the Smuggling Act 1977 to smuggle the narcotics, say, from the Pakistan to the other country for the welfare of their family, and after that such families also find in this refined confinement of the narcotics under the Smuggling Act 1977. The Narcotics Act 1997 and 1977, a Smuggling Act is different. 1977, when you just observe the Smuggling Act 1977, there appears to be the narcotics overdosed individuals just always in the foreign service agreement under section 2 clause I, and thereby violate the Immigration Ordinance 1979, and they don't have the possession of either sort of the document that which sort of the service they're going to communicate in the other country. Without having that certification into their hand, they just go from the Pakistan to the abroad, or the abroad from the other reciprocate country for the welfare of the other countries, and thereby they have no balance of convenience in the said country. After providing the balance of inconvenience in the subjected country under the objective of their working empowerment, they just want the embezzlement of the small medium enterprises material particulars remainder portions of the same enterprises into the Pakistan, and that is a business in Pakistan today. That the computers which are being defeated in the you can say that the smuggling into the Pakistan from the China are being used by the Pakistani into their houses as to just originate the income and expenses for the welfare of the remainder, and the rest of us, the remaining proportion of the Pakistanis, are complaining that we are just having the right proportion of the income and expenses by our shoulder is a myth to today. The concept of the deceased females, the concept of the deceased males and their NICs and having the properties over the names of the deceased individuals is a concept which is being maintained by the reciprocate area of the individuals in the subordinate tribunals, especially administrative tribunals, in the coast negation defection clauses. And when I just portray to be the best piece of advice by the advisory council committee head as well, that the consultation level of the same under the legal reformed union cycles by myself, that to observe the cyclones of the public disaster is a disaster itself today as a matter of grace and right. But despite of all these ingredients, the concept of the politicians in the Pakistan said that the overseas Pakistanis are originating the capital interest for the welfare of the Pakistan. I'm not of that opinion and not of that judgment, advanced one as a special legislator in the Pakistan, that if any overseas trying to originate the capital in interest outside the Pakistan, remaining as the outstanding liability or area to the liability, thereafter which sort of the services the same subject line would be rendered in Pakistan is an obscure digital question in my digital code of video link as well. Thereafter, after holding a lot of the confessional admissible statements by myself into this video confessional, Kanun Shahadat Article 9 of the Constitution, that the Constitution come that the Kanun Shahadat Order 1984 Article 9 interpreters, that the concept of the interpreter, that the advocates and subordinate advocates and the highly skilled advocates are interpreting the laws. That's the way I'm just in the interpretation constitutional observation of the political defamation as well. The leverage of the economy is the concept of the reconciled individuals despite of the humans. First, you have to be a perfect human, and after that, you will become the individual. But the question of the human becoming a question into individual is the sector which is not being observed by any point in the Pakistan today. The area of the working empowerment under the labor unions is a concept under the labor codes that is not in the position to be observed. The rent controller obscure digital amounts into the rent control observations is an absurd thought which is not being observed by any Pakistan itself. The origination of the wealth from the wrong depiction of the statements while holding the section 116 clause 2 and narrating those negative statements and while the section 114 clause 1, these are the points which are not in the position lines. So when I just rotate a question that there must be the taxation culture during the year 2022, that the all of the individuals in the workforce empowerment in the Pakistan should have filed their tax return section 114 clause 1, and after that be compiling the section 116 clause 2 under the ITO 2001 applied in the Pakistan and enforced in Pakistan till the year 2023. Thereafter, the concept of the malified intention of not posing the statements into the right sort of the directive orders, and the mandate of the same is an object line which is just concealment of the same in the obscure oppositions of the intention and interest of the object lines of the concept under the defamation ordinance of the public political defamation area as well. These were the questions and are the questions which are not being restored by the restoration order of the judicial insights in the public sector, which I just observed by myself under the research analyst report, under the research analyst federal statute 2015 as well. The concept of all of these ingredients, when we multiplied collaterally and collectively, the result would be in the combinations of the minus economy. And thereby the secondary statement of mine is that the question of the public is the confinement of their personal refreshment into the public sector through having the origination of the wealth, but as to ignoring the personal capacities of the public special ascertainment of the extraterrestrial matters of the public affairs. I said the extraterrestrial matters. It means that out of the globe or out of the world, space. The concept of the space issues in the Pakistan is not as easy. The whole of the central global outstanding areas of the individuals are in the in-person capacity while the Article 184 of the Constitution, and all of them are trying to beat the odds with the having no proper area of the refreshment of the economy into the head clauses. That's the way I just portrayed to be the best advised by the Advisory Council Committee under the constitutional mandate of 1973, amended and enforced one by myself in the Pakistan, that when I, being a highly skilled advocate, observe all these observations and the obstruction of the public defection clauses, then what the hell the public is not observing the same into the rest of the area of observing the phenomena of the public sector under the monograms of the public charge lines and selling of the organs of the non-organic areas as well. The concept of these areas should have been observed by the Republicans by themselves. So stay blessed, take care, and this is the Advanced Comparative Constitutional Advocate. Today is the lunchtime, and after that, I have just taken my lunch, and that was my breakfast come lunch, and after that, it would be my walking time. So stay blessed, take care, Advocate Gulraiz, the Advanced Advocate Gulraiz, the constitutional one under the constitutional mandate. So 2nd of the August 2022, year 2022.